In the vast expanse of the galaxy, where countless civilizations rise and fall like waves against cosmic shores, there exists an unwritten law that even the most ruthless conquerors dare not break. It is not about territory, resources, or even honor. It is about the young. Across 1,000 worlds, species may wage war, enslave populations, and strip planets bare, but children remain untouchable. This sacred boundary has held for millennia, respected by the most savage warlords and the coldest military machines. Until today. Today, someone made the unthinkable mistake of taking human children. Commander Zektar of the Vorthak Empire thought he understood warfare. He believed he knew the limits of sentient rage. He was wrong. For when humanity's young are threatened, the universe itself holds its breath, and even the stars seem to dim in anticipation of what comes next. What follows is not just a story of rescue or revenge. It is the tale of why, in a galaxy filled with apex predators and ancient terrors, the one species others truly fear to cross is the one that still tucks their young into bed with stories of monsters under the bed, never realizing they themselves are the monsters other species tell stories about. The Galactic Council's emergency session is about to learn why you never, ever touch a human child. The emergency klaxons aboard the Galactic Council ship Harmony had been silent for over 3 centuries. Their sudden, piercing wail sent shockwaves through every corridor, every chamber, every neural pathway of the massive vessel. Council members from dozens of species scrambled toward the central assembly chamber, their various forms of locomotion creating a chaotic symphony of clicks, thuds, and mechanical whirs. Ambassador Veltar of the Centauri Collective slithered through the corridors with unprecedented speed, her serpentine body undulating in ways that spoke of deep agitation. In her 400 years of service, she had never heard those alarms. The Galactic Council's emergency protocols were reserved for threats that could destabilize entire sectors. Incidents so severe that they required the immediate attention of every civilized species in the known galaxy. The assembly chamber was already filling when she arrived. The massive circular space designed to accommodate the diverse physiological needs of hundreds of species buzzed with nervous energy. Translucent force fields separated atmospheric zones, creating pockets of methane for the Gorblack delegation, high-pressure environments for the deep-sea hydrants, and standard oxygen-nitrogen mixtures for the majority of carbon-based life forms. At the center of the chamber stood the Council's primary communication array, its crystalline structure pulsing with urgent red light. Veltar had seen that particular shade only in historical recordings. The crimson alert that indicated a violation of one of the 3 sacred laws that governed all civilized interaction in the galaxy. The first law forbade the complete extinction of sentient species. The second prohibited the use of planet-killing weapons within populated systems. The third, and perhaps most universally respected, was the protection of young directive. No civilization, regardless of technological superiority or military might, was permitted to harm or abduct the children of another species. Chairman Cothran, an ancient being whose crystalline body had witnessed the rise and fall of countless empires, materialized at the center of the chamber. His usual calm demeanor was replaced by something that made even the most battle-hardened warriors present shift nervously. When a being who had seen the birth of stars appeared agitated, the rest of the galaxy took notice. Council members, Cothran's voice resonated through the translation matrices, reaching every being present in their native tongue. We have received reports of an unprecedented violation. 3 hours ago, a Vortak raiding party intercepted a human transport vessel in the Kepler Part 442 system. A collective intake of breath filtered through dozens of different respiratory systems filled the chamber. The Vorthak Empire was known for its aggressive expansion and brutal efficiency, but even they understood the boundaries of acceptable warfare. The transport was carrying civilian colonists to New Terra, Cothran continued, his crystalline form dimming with each word. Among the 237 passengers were 43 human children, ranging in age from 6 months to 16 years. The chamber fell into absolute silence. In the methane section, the Gorblack ambassador's tentacles went rigid with shock. The Hydrant delegation's bioluminescent displays flickered in patterns that conveyed horror across their species' entire emotional spectrum. Even the notoriously aggressive Corthan warhounds lowered their heads in what could only be described as shame for their fellow predators. The Vorthak forces, Cothran's voice now carried the weight of cosmic judgment, seized the entire passenger manifest. They have taken human children. The explosion of outrage that followed was unlike anything in the Council's recorded history. Species that had been at war for millennia suddenly found themselves united in absolute condemnation. The Zephyrian warcaste, beings bred for combat who knew no fear, were visibly trembling. The ancient ethereals, who had transcended physical form eons ago, manifested bodies of pure energy that crackled with indignation. Ambassador Veltar felt her own species' primal protective instincts surge to the surface. Among the Centauri, the safety of young was so paramount that their entire civilization was structured around collective child-rearing. The thought of deliberately harming children was not merely illegal, it was literally incomprehensible. "What does the human representative say?" asked General Thrakton of the Corothan Imperium. His massive bulk shifted forward with interest that bordered on predatory anticipation. All eyes turned to the human delegation area. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat motionless in her chair, her face a mask of such controlled fury that several empathic species in the chamber physically recoiled from the psychic emanations. Her hands, normally expressive during speeches, lay flat on the table before her, pressed down so firmly that her knuckles had turned white. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper, yet every translator in the chamber picked up her words with crystal clarity. "How long ago did this happen?" 2 hours and 47 minutes, Catherine replied. Chen's head tilted slightly, a gesture that somehow conveyed more menace than the battle roars of the most fearsome species present. "And you're telling me now because the Council's protocols require—" "The Council's protocols," Chen interrupted, her voice still that deadly whisper, "are about to become irrelevant." She stood slowly, her movement carrying the deliberate precision of a predator preparing to strike.
"Chairman, I need to ask you a very important question."
"When the human fleet arrives, and it will arrive, will the Council stand in our way?" The chamber erupted in urgent conversations. Several species had been on the receiving end of human military intervention before, and their representatives were rapidly calculating diplomatic positions. The humans had been part of the galactic community for only a century, but their reputation for protecting their own had already become legendary. "Ambassador Chen," Catherine said carefully, "the Council must consider the broader implications of any military response. The Vorthak Empire commands significant resources, and an escalation could... What? Chen's voice rose for the first time, cutting through the political doublespeak like a blade. "Could result in the children being hurt? They're already hurt. Could start a war? There's already a war." She turned to address the entire assembly, her human gaze sweeping across species that had conquered star systems and built galactic empires. "You all know what humans are capable of when our young are threatened. The question isn't whether we'll come for those children, the question is whether the rest of the galaxy will help us or get out of our way." The ethereal representative Luminosos manifested a form of swirling light that pulsed with concern. "Ambassador Chen, while the Council understands the emotional response to such a violation, we must consider the precedent. The precedent was set the moment they took our children," Chen replied flatly. "Every species in this chamber protects its young. Every one of you would do exactly what we're about to do if it were your children taken. The only difference is that when humans do it, we do it effectively." General Thrakton's laugh was a sound like grinding stone. "The human speaks truth. My own people have faced human wrath when we threatened their young during our first contact incident." His scarred features twisted into what might have been a smile. "It was educational. The Hydron Collective concurs," added the aquatic ambassador through her translation device. "Our historical records show that no species in galactic history has demonstrated such unified, focused aggression in defense of their offspring. Human parents will literally die before allowing harm to come to their children. Human soldiers fight with the fury of their entire species when young humans are endangered." Veltar found herself speaking before she realized it. "The Centauri archives contain reports from our border incidents with human expansion fleets. We thought we understood interspecies warfare until we accidentally damaged a human colony ship carrying families. The retaliation was," she paused, searching for the right translation, "absolute. They didn't just defeat our forces. They made it clear that any species that threatened human children would face extinction." Chen nodded grimly. "We've been members of this council for 103 years. In that time, we've honored every treaty, respected every border, and contributed to galactic stability in ways that benefit everyone here. We've shared our technology, our culture, our resources. We've been good neighbors." Her voice hardened. "But there are lines that cannot be crossed. Taking human children is not just an act of war, it's a challenge to our very existence as a species, and we will respond accordingly." The massive view screen at the front of the chamber suddenly activated, displaying the tactical readouts from deep space monitoring stations. What it showed caused another wave of shocked silence to ripple through the assembly. The entire human home fleet was moving. Not just a few ships, not a hastily assembled rescue force, but every single military vessel in human space. Dreadnoughts that had never left the Sol system were now powering up their drives. The Terran Defense Force's flagship, the massive carrier Protector, was leading a formation that included vessels from every human colony, every space station, every mining operation in their territory. "Ambassador," whispered Chairman Catherine, his crystalline form flickering with alarm, "this appears to be your entire military capability." "It is," Chen confirmed. "Every ship, every crew, every weapon in human space. Because those aren't just 43 children who were taken. Those are our children, and we're all coming to get them." The tactical display updated, showing movement vectors and projected arrival times. The human fleet was moving faster than any large formation had ever been recorded traveling, pushing their engines beyond what most species considered safe operational limits. The estimated time to reach Vorthak space was 18 hours. "Ambassador Chen," Veltar interjected. "Surely the Council can negotiate for the children's release." The Vorthak respond to diplomatic pressure when it comes from unified galactic authority. Chen's expression didn't change. "Ambassador Veltar, the moment they took our children, diplomacy ended. This isn't a negotiation anymore. This is a recovery mission." She turned back to the chairman. "I'm here as a courtesy to inform the Council of our intentions. Those children will be returned to their families. The Vorthak forces responsible will be held accountable. The only question remaining is whether the Council will assist in ensuring this happens with minimal collateral damage, or whether we'll have to work around any interference." The chamber fell silent except for the ambient hum of life support systems. Every representative present understood that they were witnessing a pivotal moment in galactic history. The humans, despite being relative newcomers to the galactic community, had just declared their intention to take on one of the most powerful military empires in known space. And based on their reputation, most of the Council believed they could actually do it. General Fracton was the first to break the silence. "The Corthan Warhounds pledge support to the human fleet. We have no love for child stealers, and our forces will ensure safe passage through Corthan space. The Hydron Collective offers our advanced scanning technology," added the aquatic ambassador. "Our deep space sensors can provide tactical intelligence on Vorthak fleet movements." One by one, other delegations began offering support. Medical ships, supply lines, intelligence networks, even safe harbor for any human civilians who might need evacuation from contested areas. The message was becoming clear. The galaxy was prepared to unite behind the humans in this matter. Chairman Cawthron observed this unprecedented show of solidarity with growing amazement. In all his millennia of existence, he had never seen such rapid, unanimous agreement among species that could barely agree on trade regulations. "It appears," he said finally, "that the Council supports the human response to this violation of sacred law." He paused, his crystalline form brightening with resolution. "Ambassador Chen, the full resources of the Galactic Council are at your disposal. We will ensure that your fleet has everything it needs to bring those children home."
Chen's rigid posture relaxed slightly, though her expression remained stern. "Thank you, Chairman."
"The human fleet will remember the support." She activated her personal communication device. "Fleet Command, this is Ambassador Chen. The Council has approved our mission parameters. You are cleared to proceed with Operation Homecoming." The tactical display updated again, showing the human fleet's formation shifting into what military experts recognized as an assault configuration. At the front, fast attack vessels began accelerating ahead of the main force, while heavy carriers moved into protective positions around what appeared to be specialized rescue ships. As the representatives watched the display, Ambassador Veltar couldn't help but think about the Vorthak forces currently holding those children. She wondered if they truly understood what they had done. The Vorthak were experienced warriors, conquerors of dozens of systems, raiders who had faced the military might of multiple galactic powers, but they had never faced humans protecting their young. And as the tactical display showed the relentless advance of the human fleet toward Vorthak space, Veltar found herself genuinely pitying whoever had made the decision to take those children. They were about to discover why, in a galaxy full of apex predators and ancient terrors, the species that other civilizations truly feared to cross was the one that still sang lullabies to their young. The emergency session continued, but its purpose had fundamentally changed. What had begun as a crisis meeting had become a coordination effort for what many were already calling the largest unified military action in galactic history. And at the center of it all were 43 human children, whose safe return had just become the galaxy's top priority. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the TDF Protector, her weathered hands gripping the command rail, with enough force to leave permanent impressions in the reinforced metal. Around her, the massive carrier's bridge hummed with controlled chaos, as hundreds of officers coordinated the largest military mobilization in human history. Every screen, every display, every communication channel was focused on a single objective that burned in the heart of every human in the fleet: bring the children home. Behind her, the tactical hologram displayed the full scope of their response. 230. 7 vessels of various classes, from massive dreadnoughts to nimble corvettes, all moving in perfect formation toward Vorthak space. It was everything humanity had built, everything they had learned from their brief but intensive education in galactic warfare, focused like a laser on a single target. "Admiral," called Captain Rodriguez from the communication station, "we're receiving status updates from all fleet elements. The Retribution Battle Group reports ready in all aspects. The 3rd Carrier Division is launching their advanced scout wings. The Marine assault ships are confirming readiness for immediate deployment." Vasquez nodded without taking her eyes off the display. At 63, she had served in the human fleet since before first contact with alien civilizations. She had commanded vessels in border skirmishes, anti-piracy operations, and diplomatic missions across dozens of star systems. But nothing in her extensive career had prepared her for the cold fury that now drove every decision, every order, every breath she took. "Time to Vorthak space?" she asked. 17 hours, 14 minutes at current speed, replied Lieutenant Commander Park from the navigation station. "Admiral, we're pushing the engines beyond recommended parameters. Engineering reports some stress fractures in the secondary reactor housings. Tell engineering to push harder," Vasquez said flatly. "Those children don't have time for us to worry about reactor housings." The young officer hesitated. "Ma'am, if we lose engine capability..." Vasquez turned to face him, and Park immediately understood why his colleagues had warned him about crossing the Admiral. Her brown eyes, usually warm and encouraging during normal operations, now held a coldness that seemed to reach absolute zero. "Lieutenant Commander Park," she said in a voice that cut through the bridge's background noise, "do you have children?"
Yes, ma'am. 2 daughters, ages 8 and 12.
Imagine for a moment that alien raiders had taken them 3 hours ago. Imagine that every second we delay means another second your daughters spend terrified, confused, and alone in the hands of creatures who think of them as bargaining chips. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more authority than a shout. "Now tell me again about reactor housings." Park's face went pale. "Engineering will find a way to maintain speed, Admiral." "Good." Vasquez turned back to the tactical display, but her expression had softened slightly. The young officer was learning the same lesson every human military commander had to understand. When children were at stake, normal parameters ceased to exist. "Admiral," interrupted Commander Sarah Kim from the intelligence station, "we're receiving detailed analysis from Galactic Council sources. The Vorthak raiding force appears to be a standard seizure operation. 3 heavy cruisers and supporting vessels. They've taken the prisoners to the Zerian mining facility in the Vorthak Outer Territories." Vasquez studied the intelligence data as it populated the holographic display. The Zerian facility was a massive asteroid mining operation, heavily fortified and designed to be nearly impregnable. Its location in the outer system meant it was far from major shipping lanes, isolated enough that any rescue attempt would be seen coming from hours away. "It's a smart choice," admitted Captain Torres from the tactical station. "The facility can be defended by a relatively small force, and its isolation means they can see us approaching long before we arrive. Standard military doctrine would suggest a siege approach, cut off supplies, and force surrender." "Standard military doctrine," Vasquez replied, "assumes we care about casualties, cost-effectiveness, and proportional response." She highlighted several elements on the tactical display with sharp gestures. "This is not a standard military operation. This is a recovery mission where the only acceptable outcome is every child returned safely to their families." Commander Kim frowned as she studied the tactical data. "Admiral, the facility's defenses include orbital platforms, fighter squadrons, and what appears to be a significant ground garrison. A direct assault could result in heavy casualties." "Commander Kim," Vasquez said, turning to face the intelligence officer, "you're thinking like a traditional military strategist. You're calculating acceptable losses, weighing costs versus benefits, considering diplomatic ramifications." She gestured toward the communication displays showing real-time feeds from across human space. "What you're not considering is that every human colony, every space station, every settlement from here to the outer rim is watching this operation. They're not calculating acceptable losses. They're watching to see if their government, their military, their species will do whatever it takes to bring their children home. The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of systems operating at maximum capacity. Every officer present understood the weight of what the Admiral was saying. This wasn't just about 43 children, as precious as they were. This was about establishing the principle that human children were untouchable, that any force in the galaxy that threatened them would face consequences so severe that the mere thought would deter future incidents. "Ma'am," called Lieutenant Jang from the sensor station, "we're receiving a priority communication from Fleet Admiral Morrison at Sol Command." The main screen shifted to show Fleet Admiral James Morrison, commander of all human military forces, seated in his office at Terra Station. His usually composed features showed the same controlled fury that had become the defining expression of every human commander involved in the operation. "Elena," Morrison said without preamble, "I'm transmitting updated intelligence from our sources within the Galactic Council. The good news is that every major power is offering support, logistics, intelligence, even direct military assistance. The bad news is that the Vorthak High Command has gotten involved." Vasquez felt her jaw tighten. Meaning? Meaning, this wasn't a rogue operation. Intelligence indicates the seizure was ordered directly by Vorthak Command as a test of human resolve. They want to see how we respond when our civilians are threatened. Morrison's expression darkened further. "Elena, they took our children as an experiment."
The bridge went silent as the full implications sank in.
This wasn't random piracy or opportunistic raiding. The Vorthak Empire had deliberately targeted human children to gauge the species' response to such a provocation. They had turned 43 innocent children into test subjects in some kind of twisted strategic assessment. "Sir," Vasquez said carefully, "are we certain of this intelligence?" Council sources confirm it. The Vorthak are apparently concerned about human expansion into what they consider their sphere of influence. They wanted to test our military capabilities and political resolve by striking at what they assumed would be our emotional weakness. Morrison's smile was absolutely predatory. "They're about to discover that what they thought was a weakness is actually our greatest strength." Captain Rodriguez looked up from his communication station. "Admiral, we're receiving deployment updates from the other fleet elements. The Retribution Battle Group is requesting permission to advance ahead of the main formation."
Vasquez considered this.
The Retribution was one of humanity's newest and most powerful dreadnoughts, commanded by Captain Michael Chen, brother of the Galactic Council ambassador. His ship and its supporting vessels represented humanity's most advanced military technology, designed specifically for the kind of precision strike that might be needed to rescue hostages from a heavily defended facility. "Grant permission for the Retribution Group to advance," she ordered. "They'll coordinate with our advanced scouts to establish tactical supremacy before the main force arrives." "Yes, ma'am," Rodriguez acknowledged. "Admiral Morrison, the Retribution Group is moving to advanced positions." Morrison nodded approvingly. "Elena, I'm also forwarding you the psychological profiles our xenopsychologists have prepared on Vorthak military culture. The key point is that they respect strength above all else, that they have no concept of the human parent-child bond. They literally cannot understand why we would commit our entire fleet to rescue 43 individuals." "Then they're going to get an education," Vasquez replied grimly. "Indeed they are. Elena, I want you to understand that this operation has the full backing of every human government, every colony, every settlement." The Colonial Assembly passed a unanimous resolution authorizing whatever force is necessary. The Economic Council has suspended all budget constraints. The Industrial Federation is retooling their production lines to support extended military operations. Morrison leaned forward. "Elena, we haven't just authorized you to bring those children home. We've given you permission to make sure this never happens again." Vasquez felt the weight of that authorization settle on her shoulders. It wasn't just permission to rescue the hostages, it was authority to send a message that would echo across the galaxy for generations. "Understood, sir. We'll make sure the lesson is memorable." After Morrison's transmission ended, the bridge crew returned to their tasks with renewed intensity. But the atmosphere had changed. What had begun as an urgent rescue mission had evolved into something larger, a demonstration of human values that would define their species' place in the galactic community. "Admiral," called Commander Kim, "we're receiving tactical updates from our Galactic Council allies." The Corthan Warhounds are providing sensor data on Vorthak fleet movements. The Hydron Collective has shared their analysis of the Zirian facility's defensive systems. Even the Ethereals are offering to jam Vorthak communications during our assault. Vasquez studied the incoming intelligence with growing satisfaction. The galactic community support wasn't just diplomatic courtesy. These species understood the precedent being set. If the Vorthak could seize human children without consequences, no species young would be safe from future predations. Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Park called from his station. Engineering reports they've found a way to increase our speed by another 8%. We can reach Vorthak space in 15 hours, 37 minutes. Excellent. Signal the fleet to match our new speed. Captain Torres looked up from the tactical display. Ma'am, we're receiving reports that Vorthak forces are reinforcing the Zerian facility. They appear to be treating this as a major military confrontation rather than a hostage situation. Vasquez smiled, and several bridge officers instinctively stepped back. Perfect. Let them reinforce it. Let them bring every ship, every weapon, every soldier they can spare. She gestured to the fleet formation on the tactical display. Because what they still don't understand is that we're not coming to negotiate, we're not coming to make a point, and we're not coming to teach them a lesson about respecting human sovereignty. She paused, her gaze sweeping across every officer on the bridge. We're coming to get our children, and nothing, not their defenses, not their fleet, not their empire, is going to stop us. The tactical display updated again, showing the relentless advance of the human fleet. 237 ships, representing the entire military might of humanity, moving through space with a unity of purpose that had never been seen in galactic history. At their head, the Protector led the formation, like the tip of a spear aimed directly at the heart of Vorthak space. In 15 hours and 37 minutes, the galaxy would witness what happened when humanity's children were threatened. The Vorthak Empire was about to learn why, despite being newcomers to the galactic community, humans had already earned a reputation that made even ancient civilizations step carefully around their borders. And in a heavily fortified mining facility in the outer reaches of Vorthak space, 43 human children were about to discover that no force in the galaxy could stand between them and their family's determination to bring them home. 8-year-old Emma Martinez hugged her baby brother closer to her chest as the alien guards passed their cell for the third time in an hour. Tommy had stopped crying about 2 hours ago, exhausted from fear and confusion, but Emma could feel him trembling against her. Around them, 39 other human children sat in similar small groups, the older ones protectively surrounding the younger, creating a pattern of care that had emerged naturally despite their terror. The Zerian mining facility was not designed for prisoners, especially not young ones. The Vorthak had hastily converted storage areas into holding cells, installing energy barriers and basic life support systems. The accommodations were barely adequate for adult prisoners, but for children ranging from 6 months to 16 years old, they were a nightmare of harsh metal surfaces, insufficient lighting, and temperatures that fluctuated wildly as the facility's systems struggled to maintain habitability. Emma, whispered Jake Chen, a 14-year-old whose parents were stationed at the New Terra colony. The little ones are getting hungry again. Emma nodded, looking around at their makeshift family. In the 3 hours since their capture, the children had naturally organized themselves into protective groups. The teenagers had taken charge of the younger children, while the older kids, like Emma, had become intermediaries, helping to comfort and organize the middle group. Even the Vorthak guards had noticed how quickly the humans had formed cooperative structures. I know, she whispered back, but we have to be strong. My daddy always says that humans are stronger than we think we are. Jake's expression was grim beyond his years. Emma, my dad is Ambassador Chen at the Galactic Council. I've heard the grown-ups talking about the Vorthak. They're not like the other aliens we've met. They don't understand families like we do. 16-year-old Sarah Kim, the oldest of the children, had positioned herself near the energy barrier, where she could observe their captors. Jake's right, she said softly, her voice carrying the authority that came with being the closest thing to an adult the group had. But that might actually help us. Emma looked confused. How? Because they don't understand us, Sarah explained. They don't know how to predict what we'll do. They're treating us like we're just small adults, but we're not. We think differently, we act differently, and we stick together differently. As if to prove her point, 6-year-old Michael Torres started crying again, and immediately 3 other children moved to comfort him. Emma watched as 10-year-old Lisa Park started singing softly, a lullaby her mother had taught her, and other children began humming along. The Vorthak guard watching them tilted his reptilian head in confusion at the behavior. See? Sarah? Whispered. They don't understand what they're seeing. The facility around them was a maze of industrial corridors, mining equipment, and defensive installations. Through the small windows in their holding area, The children could see the dark void of space dotted with the lights of Vorthak's ships. Emma had counted at least 20 vessels of various sizes, all positioned defensively around the asteroid facility. "Sarah," asked Jake quietly, "do you really think our parents are coming?" Before Sarah could answer, the lights in their section suddenly dimmed, and the facility's communication system crackled to life. A harsh voice spoke in the guttural Vorthak language, followed by a mechanical translation in Standard Galactic. "Attention, human prisoners. You will be informed that your species' government has been contacted regarding your status. Compliance with Vorthak authority will ensure your continued safety." The announcement ended, leaving the children in a tense silence. Emma felt Tommy stir in her arms and looked down to see his wide blue eyes staring up at her. "Emma," he whispered in the way that only a 3-year-old could, making her name sound like a question and a statement of absolute trust simultaneously.
"It's okay, Tommy," she whispered back.
"Mommy and Daddy are coming. All of our mummies and daddies are coming." Jake suddenly sat up straighter. "Emma, you're right. They are coming." He looked around at the other children, his voice gaining strength. "My dad isn't just Ambassador Chen. He's also Uncle Michael's brother. Uncle Michael commands one of the big warships." Sarah's eyes widened. "Your uncle is Captain Chen of the Retribution?" "Yeah. And if the council called my dad about this, then my dad called Uncle Michael." Jake's voice carried growing confidence. "And Uncle Michael doesn't lose." Emma might have been only 8 years old, but she had grown up in a military family. Her father was a Marine sergeant and her mother was a fleet engineer. She understood what military families meant when they talked about not leaving anyone behind. "My daddy says that humans have a rule," she told the group. "We don't leave our family behind. Ever."
"That's right," agreed Sarah. "And right now, we're all family."
The energy barrier suddenly shimmered, and a Vorthak guard entered their cell.
He was tall even by Vorthak standards, his scaled skin a deep green color that indicated senior rank within their military hierarchy. Behind him, 2 junior guards carried what appeared to be basic food supplies. "Human young," the senior guard said through his translation device, his reptilian features expressing what might have been curiosity. "You will consume these provisions." The food was clearly not designed for human consumption. A series of nutrient blocks and a liquid that looked suspiciously like synthetic protein solution. But Emma had learned from her parents that soldiers ate whatever was available when they had to. "Thank you," Sarah said politely, accepting the supplies. The Vorthak guard's head tilted at her response, clearly not expecting courtesy from prisoners.
"Human young," he said slowly. "Your species' behavior patterns are inconsistent with expected prisoner responses."
Explain this phenomenon. Sarah looked at the guard with the kind of careful consideration that her parents had taught her to use when dealing with alien species whose cultures differed dramatically from human norms. "We take care of each other," she said simply. "It's what humans do." "This behavior serves no tactical advantage," the guard observed. "Resources expended on weaker members reduce survival probability for stronger members." "That's not how humans think," Jake interjected, moving protectively closer to the younger children. "We're stronger when we're together." The guard's reptilian eyes fixed on Jake with something approaching interest. "You are offspring of the Human Council representative." Jake straightened. "I'm Jake Chen. My father is Ambassador Chen, and my uncle is Captain Michael Chen. This familial connection provides you with advantageous status among the human young."
"No," Jake said firmly. "It doesn't."
"We're all the same here. We all take care of each other." Emma watched the exchange with fascination. The Vorthak guard was clearly trying to understand something that made no sense within his species' social structure. Among the Vorthak, she had learned from school lessons about galactic cultures, strength determined status, and status determined treatment. But humans didn't work that way. "Guard, sir," Emma said, using her most polite voice. "Could we please have some blankets? The little ones are cold." The guard's attention shifted to her, and she felt a moment of fear at the predatory intelligence in his eyes. But she also saw confusion there. "You request resources for others at potential cost to yourself. They're babies," Emma said, as if this explained everything. "Babies need to be warm. This allocation reduces your own comfort."
"That's okay."
"I'm bigger." The guard stared at her for a long moment, then activated his communication device and spoke rapidly in Vorthak. After a brief exchange, he looked back at the children, Thermal regulation materials will be provided. After he left, Sarah gathered the children closer. Listen, everyone, I need you all to remember something important. The adults are coming for us. All of our families are coming. But until they get here, we need to take care of each other and show these aliens what humans are really like. What do you mean? Asked Lisa. I mean that everything we do, everything we say, is telling them about our species. And when our parents get here, the Vorthak are going to understand exactly why taking human children was the biggest mistake they ever made. Emma looked around at their group. Teenagers protecting toddlers, middle kids sharing what little they had with the younger ones, even baby Tommy reaching out to pat the cheek of another crying infant. She thought about what her father had taught her about being a Marine's daughter. Sarah's right, she said. My daddy always says that Marines don't just protect each other in battle. They protect each other always. We're all Marines now. The other children nodded, understanding spreading through the group. They might be prisoners, they might be scared, but they were human children, and humans didn't abandon their own. Outside their cell, the Vorthak guards were having increasingly confused conversations about their prisoners' behavior. Inside the cell, 43 human children were demonstrating exactly why their species had earned its reputation across the galaxy. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the largest military fleet in human history was growing closer with each passing hour, driven by the same protective instincts that were keeping those children strong in the face of their captors' confusion. The Vorthak had taken human children to test their species' resolve. What they were discovering was that human children were just as formidable as their parents, just in different ways. As the facility's lights dimmed for the night cycle, Emma settled Tommy against her shoulder and began humming the same lullaby that Lisa had sung earlier. Around her, the other children gradually fell asleep. But they slept in protective clusters, with the older children maintaining vigilant watch. The Vorthak had made their test. The results were going to be more illuminating than they had ever imagined. Emma Martinez had never been happier to see a familiar uniform than when the tall woman in Terran Defense Force colors knelt down beside her in the sterile confines of the Xerian facility's medical bay. The Marine medic's gentle hands checked her vital signs, while her warm brown eyes conveyed the kind of professional compassion that Emma had grown up seeing in military families. Hey there, sweetheart, the medic said softly, her voice carrying the slight accent that Emma recognized from the outer colonies. I'm Corman Rodriguez. Your mum and dad sent me to make sure you're okay. Is Tommy all right? Emma asked immediately, her 8-year-old voice steady despite everything they had been through. He's been so scared and he hasn't eaten much. Corman Rodriguez smiled, the kind of smile that adults gave children when they were impressed by their maturity. Tommy is just fine. He's with one of my colleagues getting checked over, and then you'll both be going home to your parents. Around them, the medical bay buzzed with controlled activity as dozens of medical personnel processed the rescued children. Emma could see Jake Chen across the room, talking animatedly with a man in an officer's uniform who bore such a strong resemblance that he had to be the uncle Jake had mentioned. Sarah Kim was holding baby Jessica Torres while medical technicians ran their scans, her 16-year-old face showing relief for the first time since their capture. Corpsman Rodriguez, Emma said as the medic completed her examination, are the Vorthak soldiers okay?
The guards weren't mean to us.
They just didn't understand about families. The medic paused in her work, looking at Emma with surprise. You're worried about the Vorthak guards? Emma nodded seriously. They were confused about why we took care of each other. I think they learned something, but I hope they didn't get hurt when our parents came to get us. Corman Rodriguez sat back on her heels, studying the small girl who had just expressed concern for her captor's welfare. Emma, do you know what happened when the fleet arrived? The guards said they were surrendering and that we were going home, Emma replied. Did our parents have to fight them? No, sweetheart. The Vorthak surrendered as soon as they saw our fleet. No one got hurt. The medic's voice carried a note of wonder. Emma, can I ask you something? During the time you were here, did you and the other children stick together? Of course, Emma said, as if the question was strange. The little ones needed taken care of, and the older kids knew more about what to do. We're all family. Before Corman Rodriguez could respond, a commotion near the bay's entrance caught their attention. Emma looked up to see her parents rushing through the medical bay, her father still wearing his marine dress uniform and her mother in her fleet engineer jumpsuit. Behind them, she could see other parents finding their children, creating a pattern of joyous reunions that filled the sterile facility with something it had never contained before, the sound of families being whole again.
Mommy?
Daddy, Emma called out. and then she was wrapped in arms that she had feared she might never feel again. Her mother's tears dampened her hair, while her father's strong embrace conveyed all the worry and relief and love that had driven him across the galaxy to find her.
"My brave girl," her mother whispered, holding her close. "We're so proud of you."
"I took care of Tommy," Emma said, her words muffled against her mother's shoulder. "Just like you taught me." "I know you did, baby," her father said, his marine's composure cracking slightly as he gathered both his children into his protective embrace. "We heard all about how you and the other children looked after each other. You made us proud." Across the medical bay, similar scenes played out as 43 families were reunited. Jake Chen was introducing his uncle Captain Michael Chen to the other children, his face glowing with pride as he explained how his uncle's ship had led the rescue fleet. Sarah Kim was surrounded by both her parents and what appeared to be several other family members, all of whom had apparently made the journey to bring her home. Admiral Vasquez entered the medical bay, her command presence softened by the obvious relief of seeing the children safe. She moved through the room, speaking briefly with each family, her professional demeanor warming as she witnessed the reunions that justified everything her fleet had risked. When she reached Emma's family, she knelt down to Emma's eye level with the kind of practiced motion that suggested she had children of her own. "Emma Martinez," she said formally, "on behalf of the Terran Defense Force and every human in the galaxy, I want to thank you for taking care of the other children during your captivity." Emma looked at the Admiral with the serious consideration she gave all adults who spoke to her directly. "Admiral Vasquez, were you really going to fight all those Vorthak ships just for us?" "Yes, we were," Vasquez replied without hesitation. "Every ship, every crew member, every weapon in human space was prepared to do whatever was necessary to bring you and the other children home safely." "But there were only 43 of us," Emma said, her young mind struggling to understand the proportional response. "And there are millions of humans." Admiral Vasquez smiled, and Emma realized that the scary command officer was actually quite warm when she relaxed. "Emma, that's exactly why we would have fought them all. Because you're not just 43 individuals, you're 43 children. You're our future, our hope, our reason for everything we build and everything we protect." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "And because the moment someone threatens our children, all humans become family." Emma nodded, as if this made perfect sense, which to her 8-year-old mind, it absolutely did. As the medical examinations concluded, and the families began moving toward the transport ships that would carry them home, Emma found herself walking beside Jake Chen and Sarah Kim. The three of them had naturally fallen into the leadership pattern that had sustained them during their captivity. "Jake," Emma said, "your uncle's ship is really big." "Yeah," Jake replied with obvious pride. "Uncle Michael says the Retribution is one of the newest dreadnoughts in the fleet. He let me see the bridge while the medics were checking Tommy." Sarah, walking with baby Jessica still in her arms until they could reunite her with her parents, looked thoughtful. "You know what I think is really amazing? All those different alien species helped our parents find us. The Galactic Council, the Hydron Collective, even species we've never met before." "Why do you think they did that?" Emma asked. "Because," Sarah said with the wisdom of her 16 years, "they all understand what it means to protect children. Maybe they don't do it exactly the way humans do, but they all know that some things are more important than politics or territory or even being afraid." They reached the transport bay, where the rescued children would board ships for the journey home. Emma could see her parents waiting near one of the shuttles, but she hesitated for a moment, looking back at the other children who had shared the experience with her. "Sarah, Jake," she said solemnly, "we'll always be family now, won't we? Like the Admiral said?" "Always," Jake confirmed. "We took care of each other when it mattered most. And we'll see each other again," Sarah added. "Our parents will make sure of that." As they prepared to board their respective transports, Emma reflected on everything that had happened. 3 days ago, she had been just another 8-year-old on a colony transport, excited about moving to New Terra with her family. Now she understood something that many adults never grasped, that family wasn't just about blood relationships or even species connections, but about who you protected when everything else fell away. The shuttle ride to the main fleet gave Emma her first view of the human response to their capture. Through the small viewport, she could see dozens of massive warships, their hulls gleaming in the light of the system's star. The Protector dominated the formation like a moving city, its carrier bays launching and recovering smaller vessels in a complex dance of military coordination. "Daddy," she asked as they approached the flagship, "were all those ships really going to fight for us?" Her father, Sergeant Martinez of the 15th Marine Battalion, looked out at the fleet with professional appreciation. Every single one, Princess. And if the Vorthak hadn't surrendered, every ship would have done whatever was necessary to get you back. Even if it was dangerous? Especially because it was dangerous, her mother said, taking Emma's hand. That's what families do. We protect each other, no matter what. The reunion aboard the Protector was a celebration that echoed through every deck of the massive carrier. The ship's crew, many of whom had children of their own back on various human worlds, lined the corridors to welcome the rescued children home. Emma waved at the officers and enlisted personnel as her family made their way to the civilian quarters, understanding for the first time that every person she saw had been willing to risk their life for her and the other children. In the days that followed, as the human fleet made its way back to human space, Emma learned more about what had happened during their rescue. The Galactic Council had passed emergency resolutions supporting the human response. Multiple alien species had provided intelligence, logistical support, and even military assistance. The entire galaxy had united around the principle that children were to be protected. But perhaps most importantly, she learned that the Vortak Empire had formally apologized and implemented new protocols ensuring that their forces would never again target the young of any species. The incident had become a teaching moment that would influence galactic diplomatic relations for generations. When they finally reached Earth's solar system, Emma pressed against the viewport to watch humanity's home star grow larger. Around them, ships from every human colony had joined the returning fleet, creating a formation that stretched across millions of kilometers. It was, the adults said, the largest gathering of human ships in history. As they approached Earth Station for the final ceremonies, Emma thought about the Vorthak guard who had been so confused by their behavior. She hoped he had learned something important about families and taking care of each other. She hoped all the species in the galaxy would remember that human children weren't just small humans. They were the future of humanity, protected by every adult of their species and valued beyond any material consideration. The transport bay of Earth Station was packed with families, officials, and media representatives from across human space. As Emma walked down the shuttle's ramp holding Tommy's hand, she saw thousands of people celebrating not just their rescue, but the demonstration of human values that had made it possible. Ambassador Sarah Chen was there, embracing her son Jake with tears streaming down her face. Captain Michael Chen stood nearby, his dress uniform gleaming, his proud smile visible even from across the bay. Admiral Vasquez moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations from officials while keeping her attention focused on the families being reunited. As Emma finally reached the end of the ramp and felt Earth's gravity beneath her feet, she realized that she was home in more ways than one. She was back on humanity's homeworld, safe with her family, surrounded by the love and protection that had driven an entire species to her rescue. But more than that, she was home in the knowledge that she belonged to a species that would cross galaxies, face any enemy, and pay any price to protect their children. She was part of a human family that extended far beyond biological relationships to encompass every adult who had ever told a child that monsters weren't real, never knowing that they themselves were the monsters that other species' children had nightmares about. Emma Martinez, 8 years old, survivor and protector, was home at last, and the galaxy would never forget the lesson her rescue had taught. That when you threaten human children, you don't face a government or a military or a political entity. You face humanity itself. And humanity always wins when their children are at stake.